Well, hi there. I'm Diana Montford, the world's first, yes, first, transgender television journalist. My guest is, oh, right, I should add, born male, became female. Sometimes people say, well, which direction are you going in? I don't know. But anyway, I'm non-binary, that's also the
We're
problem.
all on a spectrum.
Yes, indeed
Every
we are.
single one of us.
Absolutely. Anyway, my guest is renowned LGBTQ activist and renowned journalist, Mr. Andy Humm. You see him every week on Gay USA with equally renowned Ann Northrup. And here he is to spread joy and happiness wherever he goes, Mr. Andy Humm.
I wish I could spread some joy, but we're taping on a day when the United States House of Representatives finally passed our Equality Act, the federal LGBT rights bill.
Yes.
And they passed it 236 to like 183 or something. We only needed 218 votes. So it's probably going to be blocked in the Senate, and it's certainly opposed by the president. But that's progress. It puts everybody on the record, the vast majority of the Congress. That's good.
Yes. And, we do it incrementally, as we've done gay rights for 50 years now. And look at how far we've come in only 50 years. Unbelievably far.
And some things are being taken away now. So we've made a lot of progress. These are very tough times.
Well, 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yes.
And we always recover from fascism. As I said to you over the telephone 2 or 3 days ago, in the McCarthy era, no one would have dreamed that the late 60s and early 70s were coming,
Well, many people, of course, did not survive fascism. Millions of people did not survive fascism.
I meant the fascism of McCarthyism, not the fascism of Hitler.
There's a new movie, and when is this show going to be on?
Soon.
Okay. Well, PBS is going to run it on June 18th, but it'll probably be available on their website. The Lavender Scare, about the purging of gay people from the federal government in the 1950s by Eisenhower and McCarthy and all those people. McCarthy, of course, it was a closet case, but
Roy Cohn was trying to be a closet case, but wasn't quite succeeding.
I had a confrontation with Roy Cohn on television about that
Tell
once.
Tell me.
Well, you remember Barry Farber, who was
I loved Barry Farber.
Well, he was a conservative radio host.
He had a fun show.
He was against...
Remember Alan Burke?
Well...
Oh, I loved Alan Burke.
Well, you may love them, but...
they were crazy. They were fun.
But
and Alex Bennett at night?
Barry
on the
Farber
radio?
did speak against the gay rights bill. But he used to have me as a guest on the show. And then he tried to do a television show. This was a pilot for a television show called The Hot Seat.
Yes, and it was sold because...
No, never got on. But the pilot was shot where Roy Cohn, who was the Antichrist, for those of you who don't know him, many movies made about him.
Yes,
and
Angels in America,
all that.
yes.
Well, so he's on the hot seat, and somebody who was blacklisted was brought in to attack him, and I was just brought in to attack him because I was gay. And I said, Mr. Cohn, why do you have pictures of 3 of the most famous closet cases in history on your mantelpiece? Joe McCarthy, J. Edgar Hoover, and Cardinal Spellman. I said, there are even stories about you, Mr. Cohn, but who would want you? So he didn't respond to that. And then Barry Farber says...
You're lucky you're alive. He might have had you killed.
Barry says, Humm here says you're homosexual. And he goes, I am not a member of Mr. Humm's club, is what he said. And then we finished the taping. He didn't respond much. He tries to borrow a dime from me. That's how long ago it was. To make a phone call. It was a phone call for a dime. I said, you fried the Rosenbergs. You did all this horrible... He says, just give me the dime. I'll give it back. I'll send it back to you. So I do have at home a letter from Roy Cohn with a dime pasted to it.
Did he say thank you for the dime?
Yes, he said, I understand you wrote about this. I'd love to read it. I never sent it to him because he's very litigious. He used to
he was a lawyer.
Sue people. Well, anyway, that's my Roy Cohn story.
Okay. Anyway, so how does your back feel?
Well, it's been a little tough lately, but
what's wrong with your
I'll
back?
survive. I don't know exactly. Maybe I used to have the greatest chiropractor in New York, but he retired. So when I haven't found a replacement in the lower back a little bit.
I see.
Yeah. But I'll survive this interview, I hope.
You never know. Anyway, but anyway, so now let's talk. What do you think the future of the gay rights movement is?
Well, as you said, we had been making sort of steady progress, but now there's this retrenchment, and especially in the courts. Now you have courts that are willing to say, "Oh, no, you can discriminate if you have a religious reason," and so they're chipping it away at our civil rights. And look, don't forget. The sodomy laws were gotten rid of, finally. There were 13 states that still had sodomy laws in 2003.
Yes.
And the Texas case.
I was at City Hall when that happened at a ceremony, and I was wearing a very low-cut evening dress, and I had to run out along with Brad Hoylman and everyone else.
So the Supreme Court got rid of the rest of those laws.
Yes.
However, there's still 13 of them on the books in the states. This Supreme Court could say, it's perfectly legal to ban sodomy. They could do that.
All right.
Same thing with same-sex marriage. They could say the court wrongly decided the Windsor case, the Obergefell case. If you don't want to have same-sex marriage in your state, you don't have to, and then there'll be no.
Regarding the religious freedom aspect, we are not a theistic nation. We do have separation of church and state. Yes, freedom of religion exists, but really, if your religion is harming others, then you have no right to your religion.
Well, the wall is crumbling.
There could be a religion that said, all right, now let's kill all the black people. Are you going to allow their religious freedom to kill all the black people?
The courts, in that case, might step in. I would assume they would step in and say, no, there's limits to that kind of practice. But they're going to be talking about freedom of conscience. And my freedom not to have to serve transgender people or gay people or accommodate them in my hotel because I have religious objections to gay people sleeping together. That is going to come up more and more. And don't forget, until we pass the Equality Act, it is still perfectly legal in many states to discriminate against LGBT people. So I'm very worried about the future and the direction it's going. I have said the courts are so out of whack now with Bush's appointments that when we finally get a Democratic administration and a Democratic president, we may have to expand the court and have more justices.
Well, someone suggested 15 justices.
No, that was Pete Buttigieg.
Exactly, a gay candidate.
But to do it, all you have to, it's not in the Constitution, the number. Right. The number has Washington had 6. Mm-hmm. They were all confirmed on the same day. It wasn't a big deal. And it went up to, 7, 9, 8. Andrew Johnson wanted to appoint more. They said, no, we'll keep it at 7. It got up to 9 in the 1870s or something. They kept it that way, but it's not a rule. And we need to rebalance the courts.
Amazingly enough, it's also not a rule that a Supreme Court justice has to go to law school.
No.
That is amazing.
That's true. But here's the one rule that's in the Constitution. They do serve for life. And
unless, O'Connor, they choose to quit.
Oh, you can quit, of course. The Pope quit last a couple of years ago.
Well, a Nazi Pope,
Yes, he was in Hitler Youth.
Yes.
Pope
but
Benedict.
Anyway, and quite gay, although he says you must be gay and suffer.
He's very vicious to gay people. He always has been. He's a vicious queen.
Yes, he is.
Benedict, I'm talking about.
Yes.
People think the new Pope, what's his name?
Francis
the First. He certainly talks a more moderate line, but in terms of doctrine and everything, he hasn't changed anything on women or on gay people.
Well, these religions are going to go by the board because they are counterproductive to progress.
Well, that gets back to separation of church and state in the United States. I think the fact that we have had separation has been, I'll say, a godsend for religion. Yeah. It's allowed religion to thrive in this country. Mm-hmm. More people go to church in the United States than most countries where they have state religions, right? Even in Britain, they have the queen is the head of the church, right? They have a state religion. Nobody goes to church. But in this country, a lot of people do, but people are being turned off by the government adopting religious things.
Well, Pence is certainly dangerous along
those lines. He's a very dangerous individual, but I think that's going to bring religion down in time. And
I don't think millennials are tremendously religious. They might be spiritual, but not religious.
Right. And more people identify as what they call nuns. N-O-N-E-S, not
Yes,
N-U-N-S.
yes, yes.
Nuns, meaning I have no religion. They might not say, oh, I don't believe in God, but they say I have no affiliation. I mean, I'm an avowed atheist, but not a huge number
What
of people.
made you an atheist? I know you grew up Catholic.
What made me an atheist is there is no God.
Well, but at some point
That's
you must
what
have
it
believed in
means.
God. Yeah?
I guess I did as a kid, and actually I was even involved in the Dignity Gay Catholic movement into my 20s. But then I sort of realized, look, if I have any kind of faith, it's that we're all brothers and sisters. We are all related to each other, basically,
Exactly.
and we all
We're all
need
more
to
alike than we are different.
right, and we need to treat each other more like brothers and
Yes.
sisters. That's my basic approach to life.
But was there one specific incident that made you an atheist?
I just realized
Was it perhaps the AIDS epidemic and seeing all those young men die?
I didn't truly. Well, part of it, I guess, was that even though I was in Dignity, that community that I had, which I enjoyed, a lot of the people still friends with
Brendan
many.
Fay.
Well, Bernard Lynch, the priest, still a friend of mine, although the church has tried to.
You know, my grandfather
out.
in Spain was a priest, and he left the priesthood.
Your grandfather was a priest.
Yes.
How did he become a priest and become a father?
Well, he was the
A
second...
father.
Yes, it was known as the father of the poor. He was the second son, and he entered the priesthood because the second son doesn't inherit anything, or at least not anything worth having. And it's the church or the military entered the church at 15, but then he quit the priesthood. He had to go to Rome and get released from his vows, blah, blah, blah. And then he married my grandmother, and he became a lawyer and a
All right.
politician.
So
and all
no,
that.
so you have an ancestor who is a priest.
Oh, and my stepmother left my father to become a nun.
Oh. Did you know that we're really being discursive here on this program?
Yes.
Did you know that Prince Philip's mother
Is a priest.
was a nun?
I didn't
Became
know
a nun. She had been the royal family of Greece or whatever it was,
right.
and they of course fell on hard times. And she became a nun. And when Philip married Elizabeth, there's this woman in this gray habit marching down the aisle, and she eventually lived when there was all this political trouble in Greece. She eventually lived in Buckingham Palace as a nun to the end of her life.
Well, there's something called being a lay sister, which the singer Hildegard, the incomparable Hildegard, she was a lay sister.
Well-
they take vows of celibacy, and I don't know what else.
No, I mean, Diana, actually, brothers, religious brothers and nuns are lay people. They are not. They're in the religious life, but they're not clergy the way priests are. Anyway, we're really
Anyway,
off the
should
topic.
you wish to look up my grandfather, he has a Wikipedia entry. His name was Don Basilio Alvarez Rodriguez, more popularly known as Basilio Alvarez.
All right.
And he's pictured in his priest.
What did he do in the Civil War?
He was one of the founders of the Spanish Republic, and we had to leave, and that's why we are here.
Oh, so he was on the losing side there
Alas, yes.
to Franco. Yes, Franco, terrible, and Franco, of course, tremendous crackdowns on gay people there.
Yes.
Yes.
But anyway, another reason my grandfather left the priesthood was that he wasn't gay. He liked the gals,
Well, anyway, religion is a huge problem in this country, and we've got to get back to some sanity about have your religion, have your beliefs, practice your beliefs, but don't impose
Here's
them
the
on
thing.
others.
We have become so factionalized now that really what we're talking about is so far into people in, say, Georgia or somewhere. We used to strive for a melting pot.
Yes.
That was the ideal. And now we demand the right to be, in our little tiny group.
Well, it's Trump's immigration advisor, Stephen Miller, who was the Nazi, who said that, just this week that we are demanding you have to master English before you can even come into this country.
Well, English is not. It's not the law that English is the language.
They want to
is it?
make it the law for immigrants.
But it is not the law.
No, it is not. Of course, it's not. And they want to make it the law for immigrants. That's what they want to do.
Para español oprima el número dos. That's what's making them nervous, that people are speaking Spanish and English.
Yes.
So tell me, how'd you start your show, Gay USA?
I got involved with it. There's something called the Gay Cable Network back in the mid-'80s, and a friend of mine said, why don't you come in and do, you're very opinionated, why don't you come in and do a commentary on the news program that they're doing over at the Gay Cable Network? I did it that week in 1985, and I've essentially been part of a show every week since 1985. Eventually, we did a more full news show that I was part of with a woman named Lee Sharmat, and then we did big things. Like we covered things in the community. We covered the Democratic and Republican national conventions from 1984 until 2000. You know, but eventually it got to the point where it was just me and Ann Northrup. That was about 23 years ago, where we mostly did it as a desk-based show. Where
Don't you always, usually?
No, well, in the old days we were out covering things more, and that involves editing things and covering things.
Right, sure.
You know, so.
Well, as I understand it, you do a desk show and you show film clips.
Oh, we will run clips, of course, if we can. I mean, you have to be careful with that stuff. You know,
because of the rights and
yes,
copyright and all
you know, the way it works now, if you try to run a music clip, especially on your program,
Oh, no, I know.
They have bots that will
This
knock
is
you
why
off the air.
we use, excuse me, one reason why we use classical music, not only to lend dignity to the transgender movement,
Yes.
but also because it is in the public domain.
Yes, and we do the same thing on our show. I think we paid $5, but we paid the $5 to use Saint-Saëns,
Yes.
Danse Macabre
Yeah. Oh.
as the opening for our show.
Wonderful. Da-dun, da-da-da-da-dun, da-dun.
Well, we don't use that part. Yeah.
Oh, that was the Alfred Hitchcock theme.
Oh, right.
But anyway, and now your show means a lot to a lot of people.
Well, I mean, the great thing about, and why we keep going, yes, we've done it here in New York on Manhattan Neighborhood Network since about 2000. And then something called Free Speech TV came to us and said, we'd like to run your show nationally. They have a network. They distribute Amy Goodman's show, Democracy
Wonderful,
Now,
yes.
every morning.
Absolutely
so
wonderful.
they distribute us once a week. And so it goes out to the Dish Network and DirecTV. And we're reaching people in a lot of these isolated areas in the country. And of course, we put the show online. You can go to gayusatv.org, gayusatv.org. You can look it up. The show is always online as an audio podcast and as YouTube video. So we hear from people all over the world.
Now, you actually get paid for it, don't you?
I did it for nothing for 30 years.
I'm doing it for nothing for 30
true,
years.
30
yes.
years. Then we managed to write a grant a couple of years ago, and I got a modest stipend to continue, or I wouldn't have been able to continue to do it.
I take it you make your living from your writing.
Well, that's basically what I do, writing and journalism, yes. But I mean, I had other jobs in the past. I was the director of education at the Hetrick Martin Institute for 9 years.
Yes.
When we got AIDS education on the schools back in 1991, Ann and I went out. We talked to thousands of kids in schools, literally thousands every year of teachers and youth service providers. Talking about gay issues in the schools in the late 80s and the early 90s. It was a very critical time because AIDS was raging.
And there was no cure.
There was no
effective medicine,
treatment until really 95, 96, when the cocktail kicked in. Yes, there were more. I mean, it accelerated as you reached that point because there just was nothing that stopped it. Now there is. And of course, now there's a drug that people can take, PrEP, which prevents HIV from happening in your system.
Isn't that wonderful?
It is wonderful, except for the fact that Gilead, the drug company, will not completely release it, the patent. I mean, you go to other countries, you can pay $5 for it a month. Here it's $1,600.
Will Medicaid cover it?
There is a way to get it covered under Medicaid. There is a way to get it covered under state ADAP programs, AIDS drug assistance programs. But if you're if you make a modest amount of money, you're not qualified for that, and you just have to spend a lot of money for drugs, and it's terrible. We could stop the epidemic in its track if you take these drugs. You cannot get HIV. I mean, unless another strain comes along.
Yes.
But it's enormously successful. They are reducing new infections in like San Francisco to nothing as a result. That's the goal, and that's the goal.
How are we
everywhere.
doing in New York?
Not as well, but San Francisco is a small town. we're a big city, and sadly,
Hello, San Francisco.
and sadly, it's toughest among getting it down among African Americans and Latinos.
Why is
mainly
that?
because less access to health care. Actually, African Americans and Latinos use condoms more than white people do.
Why?
Actually, I don't know why, but that's the statistic. But that not all of them are on the drugs. The other thing is people who have HIV, right? If they take the drugs, they now reduce their viral load to the point where they can't infect anybody
Right.
else. That's another way you stop the epidemic. And obviously, there are more people in the African American and Latino community who have not taken the drugs,
Dare I ask,
adhered
are
to
you
the drugs.
HIV positive?
I don't think so, and I don't think I've had much of an opportunity lately. I'm lucky to have missed it. I don't know. For all I know, I'm one of those people who couldn't get it. 1% of
I
people
know.
can't
That's
get
very
it.
interesting.
Can't
I
get
don't
it.
have it because I'm frigid and bi.
Oh,
so there you go.
well.
No,
Whatever. Anybody can get it, but usually
Well, yes,
except
but
these people.
I'm not crazy about sex.
Except these people. Well, it's
I mean,
I'm semi-retired myself.
well, no, the thing is, what I do does not involve my backside, and that is how it is transmitted. So.
Well, it can be transmitted, yes, and it can be transmitted. Well, it can be transmitted in other ways. Kids always used to
I
ask.
am an A1 cocksucker.
Yes, but kids used to ask this question in
What?
classes about AIDS. Can you get it this way? Can you get it this way? Can you get it this way? And I would always say, if the virus gets into your bloodstream,
Which can happen in many ways.
It can happen in the mouth. I mean, it's rare. But suppose you had a lot of cuts, or you'd flossed, or something,
There you
and
go.
you were engaging in that activity.
Yes.
It could, or even a cut on the hand if
Yes,
something
sure.
splashed on your hand. It's possible, but again, we're trying to get it down to zero. Take your drugs, get tested, take your
Absolutely,
drugs.
Yes, absolutely. Well, when I get every 6 months I have to be tested because I do hormones, estrogen, and they always toss that into the mix at
Do
Cal
they?
and Lord. And I don't have any diseases at all, thank God.
Good for you.
Yes. So what can people do to stop the tide of fascism from overwhelming us and taking away our
it is a
rights?
little overwhelming. Sometimes you just want to pull the covers up over your head and wish it would all go away. I mean, that's certainly the way I felt on election day. That night.
Oh, I cried all day the day after.
I didn't
felt
cry.
awful.
I had chest pains and I had to be taken to the hospital.
Oh, my God,
Actually, I just
really?
went to the hospital. Everybody, I said I've got this horrible tightness in my chest. I started to have it right before the election because it was not looking 100%. And then it happened, and then I had these chest pains. But my heart was all right. But I just had the stress because I knew all the horrible things that were going to happen, and they've all happened. I mean, the judges, the appointments to all the departments of the administration, the environment, women's rights, gay rights, African Americans, you name it. Horrible. So that's what we're living through. But what I quote Ann Northrop on this because she says everybody just needs to do something. Do something. Just don't do nothing. Do something.
What about people who, for example, live in small towns and have to be closeted?
Well, I'm not saying everybody has to come out of the closet in areas where it is hard to do, but anybody can stand up for LGBT rights, or if you're just talking about that, or stand up for others. Just do something. We have so much to do. And look, I'm not hopeful because we're hindered by the system of government that we have. Mm-hmm. We're a republic. We're not a democracy. Mm-hmm. The Senate is wholly anti-democratic. All these little states getting North Dakota and South Dakota.
Well, we have to do away with the electoral
getting two
college,
Senates.
obviously.
Well, that too. All that. It's anti-democratic. And
if the popular vote counts for nothing, then democracy is an empty boast. We're not Democrats.
Well, I mean, don't forget when Gore was not elected, although he really was, he was
Florida,
only
yes,
he was
I
only the
remember.
second person to win the popular vote and not win. The other one was like Rutherford. I think it was
Hayes or
Rutherford.
something?
No, was it Hayes or Harrison? I think it was Benjamin. Well, whatever. It was Samuel Tilden was the loser. He was from New York. He was the loser. He won the popular vote back then. And so, we need to get back to a system that reflects who we are. that we're one person's one vote, not you live in Rhode Island or you live in North Dakota and your vote counts more. That's a bad system.
Yeah,
and the
is.
Declaration of Independence says right up there in like the second paragraph, when the system becomes intolerable, you get yourself a new system. I'm paraphrasing, but you can read it. It says when the system becomes intolerable, and that's what's happened here. The system is intolerable. So we can elect a better president.
I was going to say, isn't it possible that the system, as we interpret it today, is intolerable, but say in Roosevelt's day, FDR's day, the same system interpreted in a different way worked?
He had problems as well with the Supreme Court. He had many problems. He wanted to pack the court, and he was stopped by the Democrats from doing that. He tried to do that. Look, the system was constructed by the Founding Fathers to preserve slavery. That's why they gave all that weight to the Senate. And
what do you think of reparations?
I think it's long overdue.
But, the Egyptians were black, and they enslaved the Jewish people. So when are the black people going to give reparations to people like Bloomberg and Bezos?
Well, let me just say, you just have to walk the streets, or you just have to look at the statistics in terms of who is suffering disproportionately from the pathologies in society. And I think you can know that racism is still, unfortunately, alive and well. So we have work to do.
Yes, but it seems to be, no matter what we do, it seems to exist.
Well, no, I mean, come on. Tremendous progress was made since, they didn't even allow black people to vote in the South back in the 60s. And we passed the Voting Rights Act. And now, of course, the Supreme Court has taken a lot of that away. And, this is what we're up against now. I like to think it's the last gasp of the other side, but it's hurting quite a bit right now. Have a drink of water.
I will. Anyway, so what are your plans for the future with Gay USA?
I think Ann and I are getting on. We'd like to retire. We're looking for younger replacements. If you're interested, please contact us. Go to our website at gayusatv.org.
But do you really think,
but Ann has hung in there. I think Ann wanted to stop doing this several years ago. But I think because of Trump, she has stayed on.
But you and I, all three of us, have become almost surrogate family members to many LGBTQ folk.
But make room for new voices and things like that. We're two elderly, Ann and I are two elderly white people talking about what happened. I think we're pretty good at what we do, but other people can do it. And we have a network, that we can give them.
But what about the voice of experience?
Well, and I think that's important.
Oh, we're almost out of time. My guest has been Andy Humm, host of Gay USA. I'm Diana Montford. I was so interested in what he was saying. I wasn't looking at the clock. I'm Diana Montford. This has been the Diana Montford Show. I love you a lot, even if no one else loves you. I love you, and Andy loves you, and Ann loves you. We all love you. Take good care of yourself. Love you a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye.